Delaware. The first state. Pennsylvania. The Keystone State. New Jersey. The Garden State. Georgia. The Peach State. Connecticut. The Constitution State. Massachusetts. The Bay State. Maryland. The Old Line State. South Carolina. The Palmetto State. New Hampshire. The Granite State. Virginia. The Old Dominion. New York. The Empire State. North Carolina. The Tar Heel State. Rhode Island. The Ocean State. Vermont. The Green Mountain State. Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Tennessee, the Volunteer State. Ohio, the Buckeye State. Louisiana, the Pelican State. Indiana, the Hoosier State. Mississippi, the Magnolia State. Illinois, the land of Lincoln. Alabama, the heart of Dixie. Maine, the Pine Tree State. Missouri, the Show Me State. Arkansas, the Natural State. Michigan, the Great Lakes State. Florida, the Sunshine State. Texas, the Lone Star State. Iowa, the Hawkeye State. Wisconsin. The Badger State. California. The Golden State. Minnesota. The North Star State. Oregon. The Beaver State. Kansas. The Sunflower State. West Virginia. The Mountain State. Nevada. The Silver State. Nebraska. The Cornhusker State. Colorado. The Centennial State. North Dakota. The Peace Garden State. South Dakota. The Mount Rushmore State. Montana. The Treasure State. Washington. The Evergreen State. Idaho. The Gem State. Wyoming. The Equality State. Utah. The Beehive State. Oklahoma. The Sooner State. New Mexico. The Land of Enchantment. Arizona. The Grand Canyon State. Alaska. The Last Frontier. Hawaii. The Aloha State. After Hawaii became the 50th state, President Eisenhower ordered the 50-star flag in August 1959, and it was officially adopted in July 1960. It's the longest used version of the U.S. flag, proudly flying for over 65 years. Like and subscribe for more.